Okay, you're good.
All right. Hi, everybody. Welcome. Are we still here?
Yeah, there you are.
Okay. I had a minor hiccup, but I think we're good. As far as Facebook. So welcome everybody to our 100-day project info session. Again, I'm Amy, and I am curator of membership and exhibits here at Studio 23, and I'm being joined by Val today. As well as many of our 100-day project members. Introduce Valerie. She is the woman responsible for bringing us the 100-day project back in 2019. And we have both been participating in it ever since. So I'm really excited to kickstart our 4th year. Anybody else in the crowd here on their 4th year with us? Joanne is. Vicky, you've been in a few, I know. Only 2? All right. Well, today we're just going to go over a few of the details for the 100-day project this year around. So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen with a little presentation that I've got put together. We'll get that rolling, get it full screen. So 100-day project 2022. Our important dates, we'll get those out of the way right off the bat before we get into the nitty-gritty of things. Our first day is January 25th, and we're going to have our kickoff meeting at 4 p.m. So day 1, we are going to kind of talk about our ideas. You were asked to, when you register, come up with kind of a description of your project. So we'll be sharing those, sharing your ideas and our plans for moving forward for the next 100 days. After that, this time around, we're going to do a little bit different format. We're going to have our meetings on the 30, 60, and 90-day marks. And then we're going to have a follow-up meeting about 10 days after the 100-day project is actually finished.
Over here, sitting over here for some reason.
Yeah, I don't know what to do with it.
Oh.
I'll take care of it the next week or so.
All right.
So that little bit of a gap afterward will give us a little bit of time to finish up anything, maybe do some framing or anything that we want to do to make our projects feel complete and finished. And very exciting this year, we're going to have hybrid options. So I think the last, was it just 1 year or 2 years that we've been mostly virtual with the 100-day. And I think there's a lot of benefits to doing that. We can invite people from a little bit further away to join us. We've had people from across the country last year that joined us for the 100 days. So we can still let those people come and join us virtually, but you'll also have the option to come here to the studio and join us in the classroom and share your work that way. So now we'll get into the nitty-gritty of things. Our guiding word for the year at Studio 23 is momentum. And I think that is the perfect word to get us through our 100-day project as well. So this is a theme that if you want to use that as sort of a jumping off point to start your project and get that rolling, you absolutely can. But I think that we all end up having our own theme and our own path that we take. But I think we can all kind of focus around that word momentum, because that's exactly what we're doing, is we're trying to build our momentum and we're trying to keep it through the 100 days. Now, as mentioned, that when you fill out your application form for the 100-day project, which isn't really an application, you get it no matter what, you're going to be asked to write a brief description about your project. So when you're trying to think about what your project is going to be, we've talked in the past about the spine of your idea. This is an idea that was introduced by Twyla Tharp in her book, The Creative Habit. And she was actually a dancer and I think a choreographer. Is that right?
That's right.
Okay. So the idea of the spine of your work is a lot like the spine of the book. It holds together all the different ideas that are going to relate to your project. So even if you are working in different mediums, or maybe your subject matter changes a little bit, there's usually some sort of a thread or a vein that connects all of the different pieces of your work, and some kind of theme that comes out of it. So even though your work is going to evolve and change and adapt throughout the 100 days, it'll probably connect back to that spine, or that central idea, or the theme that's going to create that spine of your body of work. Or maybe it's just for this project. And sometimes when we're creating a body of work, the spine doesn't become apparent to us until we take a step back from it and we've worked for a little bit on it. And then we can start to see what those commonalities are. But when you're proposing your project, try to think about what that spine might be, and give yourself enough room to develop and grow, because your project is going to change. Anything to add about the spine, Val? I know I was introduced to this idea from you.
I really recommend that last line, give yourself room to develop, because as we know, as artists, our paintings and our sculptures and installations all take a life on of their own, and this project will too. So allow yourself space to adapt to that.
And any of our other veterans that are here with us right now, feel free to chime in with your feedback and anything that you might have advice on for these 100 days.
I just strongly support that, giving yourself space to let the project adapt. Don't tie it down too tightly at the very beginning, so that you've locked yourself into a prison essentially, and don't let yourself out. Let yourself out, let yourself grow, let yourself adapt.
Thank you, Joanne. I think that's very important. So just a few tips for finding the spine of your idea. Keep it simple, keep it short, and keep it concise. That'll give you lots of room to play and wiggle around with your idea. Allow that exploration, because it is going to adapt, it is going to change. So like Joanne just said, don't tie yourself down or draw yourself into a box right off the bat, because even after a couple of days, you might find that your project is going to take on a life of its own. Choose something you're excited about. If you pick a project that is going to seem daunting or tedious, after about 10 days, you're really going to feel that. So pick something that you're going to be excited about doing, and choose something that fits your life. Make sure it's something that you're realistically going to have time for every day. And actually, Val, I'm going to throw it to you again, because I know that you have a very busy schedule and you've made this work for you in the past. Do you have any tips about choosing a project that fits your life and your schedule?
Sure. Yeah, when you find yourself in a lifestyle where you're coming and going and you're not in one spot all the time, I highly recommend journaling in the morning pages. Julia Cameron was big on this in The Artist. The Artist, I lost the name of it. I know you all know it. The Artist Way. Okay, so morning pages, that kind of helps organize your day and keeps you on track. And then a review in the evening. But you know, this 100-day project can be 10 to 15 minutes or so a day. So it doesn't have to be in huge batches. And kind of setting yourself a little, I call it a pizza box station, like a little pizza box filled with all your materials that you can come and go with, and take it with you. Keep it handy like that.
So sort of keep the essentials for your project in one spot so that you can
Yes.
work around a busy schedule and take it on the go. Good advice. Anybody else out there have any advice for fitting the 100-day project into your life?
I think that you don't always have to work directly on the project every day. It can include doing some research about it. It can include thinking about it. It can include jotting down some notes about what you want to do next or what you want to change. So the doing can be a broad array
I agree
that
100%.
that is the perfect transition into my next slide, Joanne. But before I get there, I just wanted to briefly look at here the Creative Habit by Twyla Tharp. These are some steps that she gives in her book to help guide you when you're creating and you're working on the spine of your idea, to follow your own creative path, do what you want to do. Don't let other people's voices kind of get in your way. Know the nuts and bolts of your craft. Combine passion with skill. So again, something that you're excited about doing. Link your creative practice with a ritual, which I really like that idea. And it's a little bit what Val was just saying about her journaling method in the morning and the night. She has that ritual built in that helps it become a habit. Set a proper workstation and environment. Again, Val just talked about maybe having something to go, but if you have the space in your room at home and you have the time to do your project there every day, create a space that's comfortable for you that you can sit down at and get right to work every day. You don't have to worry about cleaning off a desk or anything crazy like that. If that's accessible to you and you have the ability, set up that workstation for yourself. Invest in yourself, which doesn't necessarily mean money. Invest in the time that it's going to take to do this project. That's an investment in yourself and your own creativity. So make that investment. And with that, don't focus too much on money. And that doesn't mean you have to go out and spend a bunch of money. I know we've had members in the past that have done projects that were solely based around using up all of the spare materials in their studio, and they never bought a new thing at all during the 100 days. So don't focus too much on the money part. You can make it happen, even if it's on scraps of paper. Just do it. Creativity is work. That one's pretty straightforward. You just got to sit down and get started. Don't do it out of obligation, which I think is tied back into the doing something you are excited about. If it feels like an obligation, it's going to get tedious. You're going to get run down. If you're excited about it, you're going to look forward to sitting down every day to work on it. And finally, just be confident and keep going. So that takes me to a little bit of where Joanne was headed. What actually counts for the 100 days? So hands-on creation, whatever that looks like for you, however you create, that counts. Sketching, journaling, working through ideas, taking notes, daydreaming, those all count too. If you want to do any prep work, like if you have canvases to prime or you have paper to cut down, anything like that, if you do that for 10 minutes a day and it's making progress towards your finished piece, I think that should count too. Any finishing touches like matting, framing, anything to make your work presentable, hanging wires on paintings, anything like that, it's working towards that final product, so that counts too. And research and gathering inspiration. So I know that Val does a lot of this, especially at the beginning of the 100 days, reading, listening, or watching interviews, podcasts, documentaries about different artists. If you visit a museum or a gallery, or if you attend one of our meetings, I always count those as my 100-day for myself. That lets me check the box if I come to one of our meetings. And I think it's really important to remember that you make your own rules for this. You're kind of holding yourself accountable. So depending on how you want to structure your project, sometimes people might, if they miss a day, they give themselves the opportunity to make up for it the next day. And I think it depends on the format of your project, the style of your project, but you make your own rules. So if you want to allow yourself to make up for missed time, then you can make that rule for yourself. And if life gets in the way, as it always does, start again, start again, start again. Is there anything from anybody that I might have forgot about on this page?
I really like the idea, Amy, of we're working toward of course, the reward of the 100-day, the final session, the big party we have, but also the opportunity to exhibit in the Painters and Potters. It's working toward an exhibit. So I feel like even when I take a walk somewhere, I like to go to a destination. So kind of keep that in mind. You're working toward an exhibit. And that keeps me going, for one thing.
Yeah, so our Painters and Potters, I made a mistake in my email. I said June. It's actually in July this year. So we will have some time after the 100-day project is done to do those finishing things like matting and framing and getting it ready for the Painters and Potters exhibit, but everyone who participates in the 100-day project is eligible to submit their project for our exhibit in July. So getting ready for the 100 days. I would recommend having all of your materials ready to start working on the 25th. We will have that meeting that if you want to use that as your checkbox for that day, you absolutely can. But have your idea and be ready to start hands-on working on the 25th. Making a plan. We talked a little bit about choosing a project and a process that fits your life and your schedule. So don't schedule yourself to make a 18 by 24 painting every day if you know that that's not a realistic thing for you. You could structure it in a different way where maybe you finish a small painting each week, or maybe you finish a certain number of paintings within the 100 days. I've done it before where I have done a drawing for each and every day, but it really depends on your lifestyle, your schedule. Make it flexible so that when life does get in the way, you don't feel frustrated and you can pick it back up and start again. And remember, you can always change and adapt your project too. If you bite off too big of a chunk in the beginning, you can always change that and adapt it and make it work for you as we figure out our own flow for the 100 days. Again, creating that workspace for yourself, having somewhere where you can sit down and isolate yourself if you need to and have quiet, or have that clean space. I know that's something that I like to have before I get started. So creating a space where you are comfortable working and you can be productive. And consider journaling to keep yourself accountable. Val talked a little bit about this, and I really recommend it. Even if you're just jotting down a couple of notes on what you did that day, I find it really helps me to keep myself accountable. And then that idea of creating a ritual. So you might wake up every morning and work on your project. You might come home from work every night and work on your project. Or you might have something that you do before you get started. Maybe you sort all of your materials, or you sharpen all of your pencils before you begin. But creating that ritual, I think, really helps us to get into the habit of things. It gets us in that mindset to start creating.
I agree with Joanne. Give yourself time to switch gears if it's not working for you. I found before the 25th, I did collage journaling and just got out all my supplies. And once you surround yourself with all your goodies, sometimes your idea arises from just playing with all your good stuff. So that was a good start for me. I did a lot of collage journaling the first before the 25th, because I couldn't narrow down my idea. So that helped.
And I think that's a good reminder that what you type for your proposal is not a contract. It's not set in stone. You can always change your idea and take it in a new direction, because sometimes your materials, you get them out and they speak to you and they take you in that direction that they want to go.
I like that idea of keeping a journal or a notebook. Last year, especially, I have run into the situation that unexpectedly during the exhibit, my piece sold, and I had intended it to go on my wall as a guide for future projects. And but I have that journal that I kept every day with every stitch and notes that I made about it that I can go back to and look at, in addition to the photograph, the image that Val made for me. But without that notebook, I would have been really lost.
I agree. I think that the notebook and the note taking for me anyway is a huge help.
I started a sketchbook just for the 100-day project, and I would glue things in it, materials that I used. I would even take photographs of my work and glue it in there. And it became a nice book of inspiration. I just looked at it last night and made some final notes. So it sort of spurs you on to the next idea. You can go back and review where you were as an artist and where you would like to move on to this year. So I think that's an excellent idea.
And it's a good way to keep your momentum. So I wanted to talk about a few ways that you can keep that momentum going once the 100-day project begins. And they say it takes 3 weeks to develop a habit. So getting started is usually the most difficult part to create that habit for yourself. Once the habit's stuck, it becomes easier to devote that time each day to creating because you're so used to it. And I think the ritual, the idea of having that ritual really plays into that. If you stick with it for the first 3 weeks or so, then it becomes a lot easier once you sit down at that desk or wherever you create your work to get that momentum going right off the bat. A great way to keep up your momentum is to join our meetings at the 30, 60, and 90-day marks. Join us for the 100-day project Facebook group. This will be a private group just for us doing the 100-day project. And that invite, I will send an email once the 100-day project begins on the 25th with a link to that Facebook group that everyone can click on and then request to join. And I'll let you in that way. I'm going to wait to do it until the 25th though, so that everybody's signed up, and I'll send it to everybody at once. So that's a great place to share your work and your progress, your works in progress, and get support from your peers. And while you're sharing your work, you can use the hashtags the 100-day project and Studio 23 100-day project. And that'll link you to not only us doing the 100-day project, but other people who are doing the 100-day project around the world. There's lots of different organizations that do their own 100-day projects. So it's a great way to kind of see and connect with what other artists are doing. And remember to stay flexible. We've talked so much about this, and I think it's so important to let your project lead you. Stay flexible. Don't get too caught up in your plan from the get-go. Keep it flexible and let it roll on its own. And of course, again, if life gets in the way, just start and start again. You can always pick your project back up and start no matter how long you get taken away from it. Any advice from anybody else?
You know, you talk about the private group, the Studio 23 Facebook group. It's important that you look out for Amy's invitation, because this group will be the 2022. If you did this last year, you'll still see the 2021 group out there, but you want to concentrate on joining the brand new group.
And we do have a separate group that is just the 100-day project for Studio 23. That's a public group. So if you'd like, you can also share your work there. It'll be seen by everybody, whether they've signed up for this session of it or they've done one in the past and they're still in that group. We have just some community artists that are in that group too. So both of those are available for us, but the 2022 group will be private just for us. And now I'm on to inspiration. Val, I put you up first.
Oh,
So I went through actually our Facebook group from last year and some of our images that were sent. So if anybody pops up on here and you see your own artwork, feel free to cut me off and talk about it yourself. And one route that you can take, like Val did, is to create one large piece, or in this case, a 3-panel large piece. Val, do you want to say anything about how you handled this project last year?
sure. So my big goal was to basically, very simple, set foot in my gallery, or my studio, which is away from my home, to set foot in there every day for 100 days, to cross the threshold. So I did pretty good on that, but as a result, I was able to create 3 large paintings and actually finish them up right before they were to be exhibited. So it ended up being in the Delta show, and also one was in Painters and Potters. But yeah, I worked on a large piece, but the main goal for me was just walking in to the studio. Simple as that.
So even if you were just walking in and analyzing it for 10 minutes a day, that counts.
That
So you
checked
can,
it
you
off.
can definitely have one big project that you're working on the entire time. This is my project from a few years ago, and I wanted to share this one because this is one that I did a drawing for every single day of the 100 days. And that does not mean that I sat down to draw every single day. Life did get in the way, but I made that rule for myself that I could go back and I could make up for those drawings that I missed the previous days. And I did. By the end of 100 days, I had my 100 drawings and I chose the best ones. Not all of them were great, but I had 100 and I chose the best ones to display for the Painters and Potters exhibit. Well, my favorites, I should say. So another path you can take is to create something unique and individual for every single day. Vicky, you're out there. Do you want to say anything about your project from last year? Are you still out there? You're muted.
Hi,
There you
can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay. I was really kind of results oriented with my project. I had this series of photographs that I'd taken from hiking in the mountains, and I really wanted to complete at least 4 larger paintings. They're 18 by 24. So I kind of was looking at an end goal, kind of a little different than just getting to the studio every day. But I really had a lot of fun with it. And I started out just by doing some watercolor sketches to get me into it. And I was able to do 4. I originally wanted to do 6, but 4 is good. And I enjoyed it a lot.
Well, there were 4 spectacular paintings, I'll tell you that. So I think that your 100 days were well spent.
Well, thanks. I love this one.
Joanne is here too. Joanne, do you want to talk about your project?
Which
Yours is a really fun one. I really love this one.
Which Joanne?
You, Joanne Rummel.
Okay. Well, I have for years dreamed about writing a children's book, a story, which I've done over the years. I've written several, but illustrating them was my real point, I think. And so I took a story that I had written about a doll that my daughter had, and I began illustrating the story. And I got about 3/4 of the way through, and I worked on it a little bit more and also revised some of the drawings that I had made, which I wasn't completely satisfied with. So that was it was fun to see that come to life. Was called Pink Patty, and I had to borrow the doll that was my daughter's. She still lives at my house now because I haven't quite finished. So, but that was fun doing an illustrated book.
And I think this is a great example because you didn't have your book completed at the end of the 100 days, but you made progress and you worked towards it every single day. So even if it isn't totally complete at the end of 100 days, you still have something to show for it.
When I was finished, I had about 15 to 20 pages, which is quite a few. I did work on it at just about every day. There was barely a day I didn't work on it, but so it was fun. I have a different project this year, though. So.
Well, I look forward to seeing.
Let me know when I can buy it for my granddaughter.
Okay.
Same here.
All right, and this is Ellie. I don't think she's with us today. I don't see her on here. But she did a sketchbook project. She does ink and watercolor, or ink, pen, and watercolor. And I believe hers was just different locations around Bay City. I think that's her main kind of imagery that she works on. And so she worked in her sketchbook every single day to create some of these images. This one is an older one. This was from 2019. I really went back in the archives for this one. Sylvia Kuhn, and I believe she did make a piece for every single one of the 100 days as well this year. This is Christina. She does some fiber arts with quilting, and I love this photo with her little dog sitting on her work. We can see kind of her workstation that she had set up for herself, some of her different projects from last year that she worked on using her different fabrics. Joanne Grabinski, do you want to say anything about your projects? I think these are a couple of years worth, actually.
Yeah, I'm trying to think back to my 2019, what I did. And I think my 2019 was working on the color wheel and the 4 triads that eventually that I completed and submitted for Art Walk Central and ended up as a top 10 finalist with it, and a top 5 people's as well. The last year, I wanted to go back to, I work on 2 different sizes of canvas and with 2 primary different threads. And I wanted to go back to the larger canvas, the 13 count, and all vineyard silk threads. And I chose to do 1 stitch every day. And I actually ended up with more than 100 stitches on this piece and the 1 patch. That was just wonderful because I explored stitches I had never used before. I created some new stitches. I changed some stitches that somebody else had created and adapted it for my own. So it was really a wonderful, expansive learning experience for me.
So you've had some very
I'm in a
successful
Zoom meeting.
100-day projects with exhibiting it and winning those awards and placing and selling your piece unexpectedly last year. So
Yeah.
your 100-day projects have really led you to some great places.
Yeah.
Thank you for sharing. Christy Ann is one of our members. She works in encaustics, and I loved finding these pictures because we get to see a little bit of her process and her workstation and materials. Working in portraiture and playing from drawing to those encaustic materials. Sherry Eric, are you with us today?
Yes, I am. Can you hear me?
Oh, yes. Oh, there you are. Sherry's iPhone. I see you. Do you want to talk about your project?
Yes, my project, I was experimenting with a lot of different materials. The piece on the right there, I actually did 81 small, what I call texture collages. They involved a lot of different pieces, clay, wire, metal foil, and then acrylic was the main medium. And I ended up making 81 and arranged them in a big square. And then my other work I was working on, my last year I word was elevate. So I was looking at working out from the surface in different ways. The first piece on the left just used acrylic medium and corrugated cardboard, which kind of gave it a lot of texture. And the piece right next to it was a collage piece that I used a lot of my jelly plate prints that I already had done. And I just made the background really highly textured on that piece. You can't really tell in the photo. And then the piece at the bottom there, I did complete, but this is an in-process view of it. I have for years been saving like styrofoam packing material, wanting to do sculpture with it. And this was my first piece that I actually used some in. So the white and black part there is raised up with styrofoam that I used acrylic texture medium over. And by the time it was finished, I had also used some cardboard tubes from hangers and some corrugated cardboard and just a lot of different things. And it was, I built up, probably the total depth of it was about 2.5 inches, I think. So that was a lot of fun.
I love that you used the elevate theme to create your work. These are so cool to see in person, so much fun to really get close and examine all the different textures and materials that are really camouflaged, I would say. It's hard to tell what some of them are because you transform them so much. But it's
one of my goals was to use a lot of different materials, but try to unify them and tie them together by a narrower palette and, you know, whatever texture. Just one of my goals in my work is to try to make different materials work together.
And I think you do that very successfully here. A few more from a couple of years back. Al Masig did a grid of the same image over and over using different color schemes. And it turned out really cool. We had it installed as a grid for our painters and potters that year. And then Sherry Moore similarly was working with these materials. She does a lot of mixed media collage and I believe acrylic, and created a series of pieces as well. We have some drawings by Julie Tislicki. These ones are all from 2019, I believe. So she, instead of working on a piece every single day, she chose to focus on just a few and created her series of drawings of portraiture. And Jan Wagner had a few different canvases similar to this that she worked on through the 100 days too. So she ended up with a small series of several paintings as well. Thank you all so much for being here and sharing your work. I'm so thrilled that so many of you that I happened to put in the slideshow came to this meeting to talk about your projects. I think that's wonderful. So our first meeting again is going to be on Tuesday, January 25th at 4 p.m. I'll be sending out a Zoom link invite for those of you that would like to join us virtually. We're going to have some really cool new equipment that's going to let us record kind of a conference style. So we'll be able to hear everybody's voice that's in the room with us. And I think that's going to be a really great tool for us to move forward with. But of course, if you want to be in the classroom with us, come on into the studio for 4 o'clock and we'll all share our proposals for our projects. In the meantime, if you haven't already filled out your form for joining the 100-day project, when you're doing that, think about what the spine of your work might be. What is that essential idea that connects everything and you can kind of boil it down to? Think about what materials you'll be working in. And remember to keep it concise and keep it flexible. Leave room for exploration and change throughout the 100 days because your project will take on a life of its own. And I'm going to cancel my share screen so we can all be in a grid again and see everybody. Thank you all again for joining us. I think it was really great to be able to hear from so many of us in that inspiration section. Any final last words of advice for the 100 days from anyone?
I'm really looking forward to being with everyone, both online and in person. It's going to be great. Lots of options.
Yes, I think it's going to be a fantastic way to hold our meetings and to get through the 100 days. And I think it's going to open some doors to really connect even more with each other. So if anyone watching has any questions, feel free to leave comments on our Facebook page and I'll come back through and I'll answer those for you the best I can. And in the meantime, I will also post the link to register your project below this video. And I look forward to seeing everyone at our kickoff meeting on the 25th and hearing about what you're going to be working on. I have to work on my proposal still. Well, thanks everyone for joining us and we'll see you soon.
Have a good day.
Bye.
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 Thank you, Val, everybody.
Oh,
Thank you.
welcome.